lace up those cleats and put on those mitts. It's time for another exciting edition of our Little Yankees podcast. Stepping up to the mic, it's the OLYP team.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome inside a very exciting edition of our Little Yankees podcast. Episode 23. The Yankees have officially lapped us in games played, and it's going to be just as exciting as the first 22 because the New York Yankees are starting to round into form and get things going. I'm Julian Coltree, joined as always by at least one member of the OLYP crew that I got here. It seems as though we're doing a lot of duo shows lately. I'm always here. I'm the Iron Man of the OLYP crew. I've been here for every single episode, but we've been rotating back and forth. Last week we got Josh because E-ray was on his trip to Baltimore, which we will get to in just a minute. But this week we have Eric Ray Sepulveda. E-ray, what is up, bud?
I'm good, man. I am back. Ready?
You are.
I was able to call into the show last week, which was awesome. We
only got to see your eyes and your bald skull.
I mean, everyone wants to see that, right? So
that's your trait. That's like
I'm feeling great, man. I mean, the Yankees, like you said, this was a great weekend, and we got Houston tomorrow. And I don't know, I'm just, I'm feeling good right now about the Yankees.
Feeling loosey-goosey.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe this is going to be a little different type of pod, a little positivity. Right, you guys. I think when I was listening to you guys, it didn't sound like the weeks before that. The Yankees were awful, so it was pretty bad.
Well, as you know, 2 weeks ago, you, me, and Josh pretty much completely ethered the New York Yankees because of
they deserved it.
Yeah, they did, and how depressed we were in regards to the state of the Yanks. Last week, I feel like was a perfect middle ground because Josh and I talked about really the lowest point of the team with that terrible game against Atlanta where Kluber did run out of ground ball and they couldn't score, and they didn't pick up Corey Kluber at all, who pitched great in those 4 innings of relief. And then we were watching the first game against Baltimore when we brought you on, of course, and that I think really kind of was at least a little bit of the turning point. And so we'll have the opportunity to discuss it, and we'll be able to analyze what they did in that 4-game set versus the O's down in Charm City. And then we'll get to talk about what they did in feasting against Detroit. But I would be remiss if I didn't at least allow you to talk about what it's like to be back in a ballpark and how amazing it was to finally get to see baseball live for the first time since 2019. So I'll give you the spotlight, E-ray. Tell us about your trip to Baltimore, bud.
I'll give you right from the get-go. So I went with my roommate. I'll give him a shout out, Eric Zwak. Shout out Eric Zwak, great guy.
Zwak, he's a big fan of OLYP. One of the huge OLYP fans that we have out there. The other one who quote unquote won a fan contest is going to be at us with us at the game tomorrow. We'll get into that a little later, but continue.
Yeah, so our hotel was right across the street from Camden Yards, literally right there. And I got
it the Marriott? It Marriott
was
can see in.
No,
the Marriott you can actually see into Camden Yards from.
Yes, that's awesome. That wasn't it. Mine was Hampton Inn, which was like kind of. It was like half a mile away from that one that you can look into Camden Yards, but it was right near the bars, like literally outside my window. You can see the bars, and that's a great place for me to be at. So the bars there, actually, we went to. It was called Sliders and Pickles. We went to Sliders the first Monday and Pickles Tuesday. Did a little pre-gaming. That was kind of weird. I did my first indoor dining / bar seating for the first time in a year and a half. So it was
for
weird.
The record, the game that E-ray went to before that for actual bar seating was Hofstra men's basketball.
Yes.
CAA title championship clinching game. He went with myself as well as some of my alumni friends from Hofstra University. Even though he's a Rutgers guy, he put his allegiances aside to be able to watch Hofstra win that CAA title back in 2020.
A title that they couldn't go to the tournament as both
you're right.
And Rutgers missed, but that was
they got to
year.
go this year though. Hofstra didn't, which is the irony of it. But that's a story for another day.
Yeah, but yeah. So we went to the bars, and then yeah, man, it was just crazy. Camden Yards, first of all, as you know, is just like an amazing ballpark. It's just literally beautiful. Both nights were like 75 degrees, 80 degrees, just perfect days for a ball game. And the first thing I did, actually, I went into the team shop and I bought a Baltimore Orioles mascot doll for $25. It was a pretty big guy. I think I sent a picture to you guys. I wish I had it here with me right now to show the camera, but I actually, back in the day when I was a kid, I had a little Oriole mascot. So I saw this other guy and I was like, you know what? 10, 15 years later, why not buy another one? So then I bought that guy.
Follow-up question there, since we are going deep into your childhood now with that. Did you have that because you were an O's fan, or did you just have that?
No, I think I wasn't an O's fan at all. I think I just got it like it looked cute and cuddly, and I was like,
all right. Well, it's funny because I've been a Yankee fan my whole life, but the first hat I ever owned was a Cleveland Indians hat, and because of that, for like the first like 3 months of any baseball fanhood I ever had, I was a Cleveland Indians fan, which I mean ultimately could have ended up incredibly bad considering they haven't won since the 1940s, and their teams have been, outside of the Kluber years and, you know, when they win the World Series against the Cubs, not really that good. But thankfully, my grandma steered me in the right direction, and I wound up becoming a Yankee fan back in the 90s. But I was curious because I feel like sometimes when you're a little kid, you adopt fun animals or stuffed animals or like little trinkets that you have to become a fan. So I was curious if the O's doll that you claim to have had, we don't know if that's verified either way. You might be a complete liar here. So, but
no, it's true. It's true. No, the thing is though, I used to go to, so as a kid, like I used to go to Baltimore Oriole Yankee games like every year. Like my mom would take me down with like a group of friends, and we would go literally every year because she knew someone at work that worked in the Baltimore area, and he would get us tickets. So it was awesome. So that became a thing. Like that's why I got the Oriole doll when I was a kid. I think I got a Cal Ripken shirt as well. I think it was when he broke some record. You know, he broke a lot of records back. Not the main record.
Well, he definitely didn't break the all-time games played consecutively one, because that one was when he was sleeping with Kevin Bacon's wife or whatever it was, and he wasn't able to actually break that record. Stand by that, because we're big Lou Gehrig marks on this podcast. So
that's a great rumor, by the way.
I agree. Sure. It's a fantastic rumor. Not sure if it was actually Kevin Bacon's wife, but I think it might have been like Kiefer Sutherland or somebody like that.
Something like that. I believe so. But yeah, man. So what they did there as well is there was no one in the ballpark because it was like 10% or 5% even. So it's really spaced out, but still just being in like field level, $48 tickets right there on third base side. There were Yankee fans all over the place. The Yankee fans in back of me actually got kicked out because they were just yelling and drunk and, you know, they were like a lot younger. They were like early 20s. Remember those days? But yeah, they were loud and annoying. But yeah, that first game really sucks, man. As we can go into detail about each game. That game, we thought they were turning the corner, and right away against the Baltimore Orioles, their offense sucked. And then we had Aaron Boone, you know, not challenging a call at third base when Aaron Budge stupidly got thrown out when Urshela got a hit with the bases loaded, and the Yankees ended up losing that game, which was a really terrible game. I loved going to the actual game and being there in person, but to drive there and watch the Yankees do what they do, that sucked. And then, but then the second night, it turned around. I mean, they finally got some offense going. Corey Kluber, who we'll probably talk a lot about today, pitched great. I think he went 6.2 innings, I believe. And I think I saw a Judge home run, Stanton home run, Higgy dinger. So that was a great night. I also got my first hot dog at the stadium for the first time in I guess, honestly, since 2019.
Let me say this. I'm impressed because you and I we're feuding members of the Gerrit herd and the Ajita alliance.
Yes,
you've talked about it before on the podcast that, you know, you yourself have Gerrit, but of course I have Ajita, which of course acid reflux for both of us. I can't eat hot dogs. If I even take one bite of it, it destroys me. So I'm impressed. No, and I love hot dogs.
Jules.
Hot dogs are one of my favorite things of all time. I love them.
And you can't
eat them.
Damn.
Nope.
I will tell you, the GERD was great.
No, it was on its best behavior.
The GERD knew that it was my first, trip to Baltimore, first game since the 2019 ALCS, and it's like, you know what, E-ray, I'm gonna be there for you, and I'm not gonna give you.
See, there you go. I love that.
The GERD was there, so I appreciate it. Thank you. I call this is gonna get weird now, but I'm an open book. I call my GERD Alan. I don't know why his name is Alan, but that's just his name. Because remember, the hamster in the brain here, the hamster on the wheel. I'm a psychopath, but yeah, Alan behaved himself.
But we accept it.
Of course, you guys got to accept it. This is what I meant.
Absolutely.
But yeah, man, a great 2-game trip. I would love to go there again. Probably, I don't know about this year, but I want to make it another yearly thing. Maybe with the OLYP trip. I don't know. Maybe 1 year.
That's what we want.
It felt great to just be back, man, in the stadium, and you'll get that tomorrow when you're finally back, when we all go to Yankee Stadium. So
absolutely.
It was a great trip.
When people hear this, it will obviously be the day of the game. The Yankees have an off day on Monday, May 3rd. Happy birthday to my mother. She's wonderful. Today's her birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yep, absolutely. Maureen Coltree. She's the best. We love her.
Maureen
Coltree. But the day people hear this will be May 4th. But you're right. And that's a good point to, I guess, kind of transition to the games themselves. The first game, Matt Harvey, if you listen to WFAN, if you listen to Carton or Roberts, they mushed the crap out of the New York Yankees, saying they were not going to be afraid of what Matt Harvey could deliver. And he did, 6 essentially shutout innings against the New York Yankees.
He looked good.
He pitched gorgeous. And if you're Howie Rose, you pretty much said the reason you were doing it is for the hope that the New York Yankees would trade for you later on in the year, because we know the Dark Knight. We know during his time with the Mets, all he obsessed with was the idea of being able to come to the New York Yankees, and he looked really good. And you mentioned they split those middle 2 games and won against Baltimore for games 2 and 3, and then that Thursday day cap where we wanted them to win. Take the Detroit series and what happened this weekend aside, you could make a case that game on Thursday, that day game, between not hitting a pitcher with a 7 ERA, between making blunders in the field, between Aaron Boone doing some boneheaded things regarding infield game substitutions. It was potentially the worst game of the loss, especially when you add on the worst loss of the season. Sorry.
Yeah.
Potentially when you add on the fact that if they had won that game, they go into the series against Detroit, which they just swept, having added on to that sort of win streak. But without analyzing that series against Detroit, you take the good with the bad from Baltimore and you say to yourself, not what we would have wanted. Splitting with the O's definitely is the furthest thing from it. But in the wins, they looked good. Corey Kluber, the offense, hitting home runs. And in the losses, they were what we've expected and seen throughout this year.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a stupid loss, but Glaber did tie it in the 9th inning, right, with 2 outs. And of course, that damn wall, if it was a little bigger, it probably would have scored the winning run. But the one thing I took away from that game as well is Tyler Wade not being able to put down a bunt. And, we take the positive with the negative. And one of the negatives is, I don't know why Tyler Wade's on this team right now. Because if he can't put down a bunt, I mean, when Tauchman was here and Tyler Wade was on the bench, both of them, Tauchman was the one being, used as a pinch runner. What is Tyler Wade here for? An extra defender? I mean, I just don't see a place for him on this roster. I want him long gone from this team.
Yeah, he's not a major leaguer right now.
Yeah,
if you can't bunt in the one opportunity you're given to try and move the runner across in extra innings, then you're not a major leaguer. And we know he's not a major leaguer because of his hitting, because he's never hit in his career. And we know he's not a major leaguer because of his defense, because he is the second best defender at every single position. That's the reason why he's the bad Ben Zobrist, the BBZ of the New York Yankees. So, and we can, I think this is a good almost discussion point because personally speaking, I thought the Yankees should have kept Mike Tauchman. If there was one guy that would have traded, and I guess the value of Tauchman was probably higher than Tyler Wade.
Cashman got a lot of calls. I guess he did.
He got a lot of calls, allegedly. But the Giants, for Wandy Peralta and a player being named later, trade for Mike Tauchman. It happened at the beginning of the week. I think it actually happened before the I guess that would have been the Tuesday game for the New York Yankees. It was not the Matt Harvey start. It was the Corey Kluber start for the Yanks the next day. I know because I went to Dairy Queen with my wife and I had a great time listening to John Sterling on the radio. I love Dairy Queen, bro. Dairy Queen.
You know, I worked at Dairy Queen, right?
I didn't know that. That's unbelievable.
To the listeners, I worked at Dairy Queen. I'm a big M&M Blizzard guy.
So I love Blizzards, but mine is the summer one that they do with the cotton candy, though they had a new one that was frosted animal cracker, and I had it. I loved it. My wife hated it. She thought it was disgusting. She made faces the whole way home. So she's laughing in the background right now. If you can hear her. She hated it. She thought it was disgusting. But that's a story for another day. Either way, the Yankees trade Mike Tauchman. And truthfully, if I think about it, it's like you have Gardner in a slump right now. Hasn't been playing that good. Him really and Tauchman are essentially just the younger and the older version of each other. They're both fast. They both play great defense. They can both play the center field and left field, outfield positions. I don't know. For the fact that obviously the reason you keep Tyler Wade on this roster is because he's a backup shortstop and you don't have one. That aside, the difference between these two, one who is clearly a major leaguer and can clearly hit when healthy and has shown, at least even if it was like a 15-game, sample size when he was good in 2019, and Tauchman, he can play. And Wade, who has just never been good, more than an average replacement player during his major league career. Like, to me, it's no contest, when
it comes to Tyler Wade, comparing it to him, and when you say you made some good points where like Brett Gardner's really slumping. So, and Tauchman right now, he's playing every day in San Francisco, and I think he hit a home run. He got a couple hits. I do see your points, but I got to be honest.
3 hits in that first game that he played.
Yeah, he did. And probably with everyday playing time, he's probably going to do pretty well, to be honest. But I don't know, man. Personally, I got to be honest. I was kind of indifferent to it. Like, kind of like, I get it, like regarding everything else. But I don't know. I just didn't, like, he was the sock man, he's a great guy, looked like, and a great teammate. I kind of didn't care. Maybe, we got Wandy Peralta. Now, if Wandy Peralta becomes a big bullpen piece later this season, it'll be amazing.
Wandy Vision.
Yeah, exactly. That was a great nickname, that Yankees Twitter. I think it was someone on Yankees Twitter. I'm not too sure, but I don't know. I kind of just stopped caring about Tauchman in a way. Maybe it's because last year he couldn't, and just fouling off all those fastballs really pissed me off for so many seasons. But he's a good guy, man. I want him to do well. But I get it, because like you said, like Gardy's struggling and Tyler Wade sucks.
And I think, to me, that's kind of like, I thought about this yesterday when I was watching the game, and I was thinking about Gardner, I guess, sort of in a nutshell. And I said to myself, I was like, I love Gardy. He is one of these iconic, longtime Yankee franchise players. But if you separate the player from the franchise history that they have, you would want Mike Tauchman as your backup left fielder, backup center fielder to replace Clint Frazier. And that to me is the only thing. But odds are, they keep the guy who doesn't have the value but has been there before. And it makes sense, because at the end of the day, you will get something for Mike Tauchman. That's what we saw Brian Cashman say. He was getting calls for Mike Tauchman, but you won't get something for Brett Gardner because he's old and because his great years behind him, and you're not going to get anything for Tyler Wade because he's a above average minor leaguer and a below average major leaguer. So, that's the way that it boils, and that's really what it is. But, they kind of put a kibosh, I guess you could say, on the Baltimore series. I think the biggest thing that you could say is this was the one time, at least for the New York Yankees, that they looked good, but they continued to rear their ugly head with some of the stuff that has plagued them, particularly over managing by Aaron Boone, who, look, we absolutely dookied on him the last 2 weeks. And you don't need to hear me go in depth about why he is a terrible manager, because I can go on a dissertation about it. But you saw that, and you saw the shortcomings of their team when they don't hit home runs in the game against Matt Harvey, where he was not hit as good as he should, and the game against Lopez in the last game of the series, where this dude has 7 ERA and they weren't able to tag him.
Yeah, and to be honest, I was kind of shocked to see that they were, because again, their offense has just been so brutal this first month of the season that they're in the like top 10, I think top 5 or something in home runs. But like you said, though, on the games that they win, they hit a lot of dingers, and that's what they're built to do, right? But on the games that they lose, they don't hit a lot of dingers, and they do the stuff, the normal baseball stuff that you're supposed to do, like that, like base running or getting the guy over. I mean, again, in that game, that Thursday game, which I want to keep pointing to, because again, that's a game you want, right? You want to leave Baltimore on a high note, and yeah, it didn't happen. Which
difference between 6-2 on the road trip and getting a Cole start to extend your win streak versus coming in on a loss. And the Yankees would be, if they had won that game, a game, maybe 2 games over 500. Matt's not really our strong suit, and I don't really know what the record was going into that off the top of my head.
9-13.
So they would have had the opportunity, if they had won that, to have gotten to 500 with the Cole start. I knew that.
Yes. Yeah.
And then therefore you would have been, 2 games over 500 based off of that. So, it's a huge difference to go 6-2 on a road trip versus to go 5-3 and lose 2 games and split a series against a Baltimore team that you have to beat up on. It's not what you want, but not to get too, beat a dead horse, because it already happened. It was almost a week ago at this point. It's just a little frustrating.
Yeah. And especially just like, it seems like, okay, the extra inning rule sucks. We both agree with that. Josh agrees with it.
They've lost every game but one.
Yeah. You know why, though? It's because they start with a runner on second.
Yeah. I mean, they literally couldn't hit with a runner on scoring position if they were given a hit with a runner in scoring position.
They're literally given the runner, and they can't even move the guy over. It's literally the Yankees' kryptonite. Like the Orioles, the extra inning rule suck, but
bases loaded, nobody out.
I know that as well. It's just that's what's more frustrating. That's why the Yankees have to, I guess, continue to hit the ball over the wall, because that's the only way that these guys are coming home. But
yep, you're right. All right. So with that in mind, we'll get to the series that actually just happened. And this was the biggest series of the season for the New York Yankees. It's probably the 3-game stretch for New York that they actually looked like the team that we all expected them to be this year. And it started on Friday with Garrett Cole on the mound, pitching like an ace, only going 6 innings, but being absolutely dominant in those 6 innings that he had. But more importantly, it was the Aaron Judge show, because he had 2 behemoth home runs, one going off of the center field mezzanine area with the, I think it used to be called the Pepsi Lounge. I'm not sure if it's still called that.
I'm not sure either.
But it went off of center field, the batter's eye. And then the next one, he was able to go Oppo Taco and hit that into the second deck right near the short porch. And it was a laugher. And the Yankees got the job done with the bases loaded for what seems like the first time this year. Giancarlo Stanton continues to be the best 2-hitter in baseball. We love him. Josh hates him. We love you, Josh, but you find everything that you can nitpick about him, and I'm through with it. I'm through with it. He's the best. And he's a 2-hitter. I'm done with it because he rules, and I'm sick and tired of hearing you talk about him hitting ground balls and crap like that. Do that when he's batting 0 for 50, not when he's on a 9-game hit streak. But I digress. I'm a little hot right now. We're taking it down a notch. Josh isn't here to defend himself, and I apologize for that, because I wouldn't have lost my cool like that if Josh was here, because he keeps us he keeps us level-headed, and that's why we love him. And I know
you need to let it out. That's
you're right. I agree 100%. But we have the best 2-hitter in baseball. We got the New York Yankees and Aaron Judge looking good, and they were fantastic. So that first game, that's what you expect. If that was a playoff game, Garrett Cole on the mound, that lineup there, that front four that we saw with DJ, Stanton, Aaron Judge, and then Gio Urshela looking good in that 4 spot, you'd be pretty happy with how things look.
Yeah, I mean, Garrett Cole, you can't say enough about the guy. We love the guy, and he's been just incredible this year. He's been the Garrett Cole. That's the guy that we signed. I think he's the first pitcher in history with 10 Ks, 0 walks, and 5 or fewer hits in 3 straight games.
Three straight innings without a walk is incredibly impressive.
As well. And I think something like he hasn't given up barely any home runs this year. Remember last year, it seemed like, especially against the Rays or something, he was giving up lots of dingers. So he's kept the ball in the ballpark as well. He's been pitching incredible, man. And that's what we need from our ace at the top of the rotation. And we'll get into more, as we talk about the other games about the other Yankees performers. But yeah, Stanton. What was interesting, Jules, I don't know if you knew about this, but listening to, Talking Yanks with John Boy, and he mentioned that apparently, I don't know.
I know what you're going to say, and I was going to bring it up too, that Stanton had wanted to bat in the 2-hole for forever, and that Judge had petitioned the New York Yankees management to bat him in the 3-hole. Yeah. And it's honestly insane to think that now they've been here since 2018, so that's 3 years. For the 3 years that these two players
season.
So for the 3 full years and the 4th season now total that this team has been together, they refused, because of the analytic nerds in the front office, to put them 2-3. When 1, they both wanted it. 2, when Stanton won MVP with the Marlins in 2017, he batted 110 games from the 2 spot. So your best player batting from that spot, it's mind-numbingly awful to think that these nerds got so in their own head that they wanted to insert mediocre, subpar, under 200 batting lefties in between these two iconic sluggers.
Yeah. It seems like I would hope so. The perfect lineup right now is LeMahieu, Stanton, Judge, Urshela. That should be your top. That has to be your top 4 right now. I guess we'll see when Luke Voit comes back. But right now, that lineup, that top 4, the lineup is working.
Yeah, when Luke Voit comes back, you bat him 4, because ultimately he's a big slugger and they're going to respect him.
And then Urshela could go to 5 or something.
We've gotten to the point now, and this is sad, but it's the truth, that the New York Yankees lefties are not pathetic, but hit or miss. Because Rougned Odor is the only lefty in this lineup who, and I'm not counting Aaron Hicks as a switch hitter, even though he's absolutely he's abysmal as a lefty. He is one of the worst things about baseball this year, batting from the left side. On the right side, he's good, but on the left side, he's one of the worst things about baseball. Rougned Odor is good, but he's hit or miss. So you're at the point now where your lefties are not good enough to be inserted in the lineup in the top 5, because then you're just giving away outs.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, take away Luke Voit. You're right. Your top 4 is LeMahieu, Stanton, Judge, and then you have Gio Urshela. And then when you bring back Luke Voit, maybe you start with him in the 5 spot behind Gio, or you just slot him right into the 4th because you want him to see pitches right away. But that's what it should be. Get over the righties getting broken up by the lefties BS. We want to see guys hit well and get the opportunity to have protection in the lineup, because one of the things they said on Talking Yanks, and I'm sure you heard it, was that Trevor Plouffe, who hosts Talking Baseball with John Boy and Jake, said that it matters to have protection, and it matters to allow a guy who wants to hit in the spot that he wants to hit in to hit there. And that's what it should be from now on.
That was interesting to hear, because, you never know. I didn't really know. You hear about these hitters, like they look at the lineup card. They're like, oh, you have guys that say, oh, I can bat. I want to bat anywhere. Like, it doesn't matter to me. But it does matter to these guys. They want to see them batting in a spot that they're comfortable in. When they're comfortable in that lineup spot, they go to the plate with that confidence. So it's just very interesting that the Yankees just decided to continue to shoot themselves in the foot. But we've seen that with a lot of the decisions they made in the last couple of years when it comes to, whether it's pitching J.A. Happ in game 2 or now this. But it seems like I think we talked about it a couple of weeks as well that, the Yankees and analytics, they don't really mix. They're not, it's not working. So hopefully they don't mess this up. Judge and Stanton continue to bat. Stanton and Judge continue to hit back-to-back, barring injury, of course. But yeah, just keep it going. It's working right now. Don't F it up.
I agree 100%. Rocco agrees too. That's why he's barking up there.
Rocco.
We got the second game of the series, which of the 3 games that they played against Detroit, and look, we know they're fattening up against Detroit. It was a team they should have beaten. They swept, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But of the 3 games that were there, this is the only one that honestly kind of felt close. First game was a blowout. And then even though the third game with Kluber, which we will get to in a minute, wasn't a blowout, it felt like that because of how well he pitched. This was a game in which you had the Yankees offense clicking a bit. You had a day off for Stanton. You had a bit of a mess around lineup in terms of guys getting day offs here or there. And then Taillon, who pitches good for those first 4 innings, then runs into a little bit of trouble. You have that weird ass inning where the ball hits the batter in a rule that is like straight out of the evolution of baseball, where they just didn't know what to do back in like the 19th century when they created the game. And they're like, hey, if the ball hits the batter, I guess that's an out. So you had one of those, which I had never seen. And if I had, it must have been years ago to see that sort of crazy bounce that hits a guy in the base paths. And then you had the Miguel Cabrera at bat where he was able to get behind that. And, other people had said it, and it's truly the case. If he gives up a base hit there, if he gives up a double there, if God forbid he gives up a home run, he goes out of that game giving up 5 runs in 4 2/3 innings. Instead, he goes 5 innings with 1 run. And Josh and I talked about this last week. He is not on the same caliber as what Garrett Cole was that year he left Pittsburgh and he went to Houston, but he's pitching in the same light. And he had 8 strikeouts in that game on Saturday. He was being able to get his fastball to work up in the zone at a point in which he was really able to get spots going. And for a guy who a lot of people think is maybe the best gem in this lineup, he looked good. Another good start for him.
Yeah, and he needed that, right? He's again, he hasn't pitched in a couple of years. Shout out to Taillon. This is his first victory in 2 years since Tommy John surgery.
It was 2 years to the day too. They did the
thing. That's booking.
They gave him the belt.
Booking.
Yeah, you're right. It was big time booking.
You got the thing about baseball or anything, you just gotta love booking, whether it's in life, baseball. You always appreciate good booking. And Taillon winning this Saturday was good booking. But yeah, man, it just, again, every outing out there, hopefully he just gets stronger, he gets more confident, and his pitches continue to work on his pitches, so he just continues to get confident. And that's what you really need, because Taillon's going to be a big part of this rotation. He's going to be important. He could be an X factor. We know the stuff that he has. We talked about in the offseason on our podcast about the spin rate, and that's of his pitches. And that's why Cashman fell in love with him. And that's how we traded for the guy. So, he got his first victory out of the way, and hopefully he can just, continue to build on that and continue to, give us length and continue to get quality starts out there. What's a crazy note, actually, or a nugget, as we call it? The Yanks pitching right now, Jules, is 3rd in ERA, 10th in quality starts. And I say 10th in quality starts because there's another note here that Yankees starting pitchers have gone fewer than 5 innings in 12 games this season. That's the most of any team in MLB. So they have the most of any team in MLB.
It's interesting because that
in 5 innings, but they're 10th in quality starts. So that means when our pitchers have good games, they give us a quality start, which is pretty good, I guess.
To quote Mike Francesa, when so-and-so is so-and-so, and they're yes. So-and-so.
Yeah.
I could have given an infinite amount of potential Mike Francesa Zonisms for that, but it definitely would have worked. And we're going to get to the staff in a little bit because I don't think it's a debate, but it is an interesting nugget that I would like to hear your take on. But before we get really deep and down into that, the one last note from that second game, and it plays off of what we saw in the first game, was Aaron Judge was electric. RBI double, RBI single. That was coming off of the game with 2 home runs. We, just like Josh, just like all of Yankees Nation, are concerned whenever we see Judge out of the lineup. We know his injury history. We know, especially with some soft tissue or some injuries that come out of nowhere, that he has been, lackluster when it comes to staying healthy. But he was able to come off of those 2 games where he was out. And let's be honest, load management, like what it is in the NBA, it's real in Major League Baseball now, especially for the New York Yankees. Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, whoever it is, they're getting load management to keep them around for the long haul. But it was nice to see him come off of those load management games in Baltimore.
Two games,
a game and a half, because he pinch hit in that game against Baltimore in the day game to end the series, the go-away game. But he comes back and he's just dynamite in those first 2 games.
Yeah, he's been on fire. I think he's hitting 450, I believe, with runners in scoring position this season. So I think I'll mention what Josh mentioned in one of our chats last week. I think he was saying that, a lot of people, especially us early in the season, we get on these guys when they're not in the lineup, whether, it's a 2 days off when they have a game off or something like that. You're like, why are they sitting the game before? But, this, like you said, man, load management helps. And if Aaron Judge needs to sit a game here and there, if he needs to sit 2, I mean, hopefully it's not, crucial games or later.
Yep.
Like important games where we have to win. But a game in April, and then you see him after these 2 games, he's like, he hits 2 home runs on Friday, and then Saturday he continues to do well. Stanton, I think, had 3 straight games where he had 3 hits.
First time in his career.
Oh, wow. You see right there. So, if they need to rest and then they come out guns a-blazing the next game out there and they help us win, I guess you're going to have to do it. And hopefully our rest of our lineup can carry the squad that day that they're resting. But hopefully for now, it's okay. Of course, again, as the season continues and you don't want to see Aaron Judge or Stanton sitting these games in August, September, and games that matter. But for now, I guess, just keep it going if it keeps them healthy and keeps them in the lineup.
You're absolutely right. That's all you can ask for. And for the Yankees, it's not about winning games in April or May or June. It's about winning games in October. And, we want Aaron Judge. We want Giancarlo Stanton to have MVP-like seasons. And if that means playing 130 out of 162 games because they have 32 games off, then you accept it. I love Stanton more than anybody. You guys know that. I am the main driver of the Stanton shuttle. That's me. I drive that Stanton shuttle. Nobody else behind it. My wife hates Stanton. She's complaining in my ear right now. Her and I get in it all the time. But if that means for him to be what he can be at his peak, he needs to have 30, 40 games off. I accept it because I want him there for those other 122, 132 games and for him to rake in the playoffs. I don't want that 12 straight game stretch where he is out because of a calf injury, because then you're not in that rhythm anymore. Because look at what happened in the game on Sunday that we're about to analyze. Stanton has the day off, first at bat, immediately on a ball, winds up getting a big base hit. So that's what it is. To build a rhythm, you have to be there. The best ability is availability. And for Judge and for Stanton and for any of these guys who have been injury prone in their careers, being able to go out there and play every other day is as important as playing 162. And if Boone and the analytics staff and the nerds in the front office and Cashman need it to be load management like what you see with LeBron and when Tim Duncan was called old and stuff like that and he wasn't able to play games, then you accept it. And that's what it is. As far as that last game is concerned, this good transition point, maybe the best pitch game of the year, which is saying something because it was not Garrett Cole. It was Corey Kluber in his second straight really solid start because he was very good in Baltimore on that Tuesday game where I went to go get Dairy Queen. I didn't get Dairy Queen on Sunday. So I don't think the Dairy Queen was the trick, but clearly
and it wasn't me being in the stadium. That wasn't the trick.
That wasn't it either. But clearly something is clicking now with Corey Kluber because he goes 8 innings. He strikes out a mess of Detroit batters, and I get it. Yeah. Detroit isn't really.
Don't get us wrong. Yeah, Detroit's a really bad team. They showed why they're a really bad team.
They're under 500 by a lot. They don't even have 10 wins yet. But the Yankees should feast on them. You can't control who you play on the schedule.
Teams. Yep.
And for Corey Kluber, what's the best way to build confidence? Looking absolutely dominant against a team that you should absolutely dominate. And that's what he did. It was incredibly impressive. He went 8 innings when Cole only went 6, which I guess you chalk up to the fact that the Yankees don't really care about what happens to his arm because he's only here on a 1-year deal and they have 6 more years of Cole. And they want to build his arm up a little bit more. He hasn't pitched in 2 years. So you see what it is. But for a game that really was not a blowout at all because Detroit went tit for tat with them with their pitching.
Jose Urena pitched one hell of a game.
Yeah, Urena pitched great for a game that was really incredibly close. It never felt close because of how good Kluber was.
Yeah, and also it was one of the fastest games of the season. I think it was like 2 hours.
2 hours 14 minutes. I cannot tell you the last time. Like time flew. I was listening to it on my phone, and out of nowhere, the game was over, and I was like, "Oh my god, what? 2 hours and 14 minutes? Are you kidding me?"
That's insane.
It was absolutely unbelievable.
No, man. But back to Corey Kluber. I mean, we talked about Tyone and him getting his stuff in, but 2 back-to-back starts. Yeah, it's the Orioles and Tigers. This is exactly why we signed this guy, right? This is what we, Cashman and a lot of other major league teams. When they saw this guy work out in the offseason, a lot of teams offered him contracts. And, Corey Kluber, we got on him a little bit. We got on him. He was struggling a bit, but, 2 back-to-back starts. He pitched one hell of a game yesterday. It was great to see. Like I was when he came out for the 8th inning, I was hyped because I didn't think he was going to be out there. He also, I think he smiled a little bit. These are now 2 games, I think, where we in the last week where we.
He didn't smile a little bit. He smiled a lot. There's some big photos of him really yucking it up in the Yankees dugout.
So I mean, he's having a good time. I mean, how can you not when you pitch the way he has the last couple games? I think today he found out he won pitcher of the week. So good for him, Corey Kluber. But yeah, man, I hope he just continues to build on it because that's what we need. I'll tell you, if the Yankees offense is starting to get their form and if this pitching starts doing what they're doing, I hope we're headed towards a lot of winning games here.
Yep, you're right. Absolutely. Yes or no question. 3-game series, big sweep against the Detroit Tigers. They've now won, I guess, 5 of their last 7 if you go back to the series against Baltimore. And before that, it was a 3-game series against Cleveland. So that's 3, 5, 8 of their last 11, if my math serves me right. So 8 of their last 11. The offense is looking good. They're starting to hit home runs. Don't check my math, please. We're not a math podcast. We're a Yankees podcast.
Oh, me? I don't do math.
Yep. See,
I'm not checking.
So 8 of their last 11, and now they've won 3 in a row. To quote John Wick, are you thinking I'm back? Are the Yankees back?
Maybe.
No, I said yes or no, not maybe. Maybe doesn't count. Gut reaction. Say it. Say an answer.
Gut reaction is no.
Oh, see? All right. Well, tell me why.
Because it's the Orioles and Tigers, and those are games that you're supposed to win. And I'm happy that they won it because they needed to win it. And if they lost it, it would be even more disastrous. But I want to see them. The season starts tomorrow night, in my opinion. They're back at 500.
Both physically and metaphorically, because they're back at 500.
That's true. That is true.
And it's 0-0 from here on out. You have your next 130 games to be able to do it.
New, fresh slate of games. The Astros are in town for the first time since 2019. We always talk about how they continue to get clowned by their rivals. This is a team that you can say, I guess, stole away a AL pennant in 2017. They beat you in 2019. Yeah, man. I want to see them, at least take 2 out of 3 from the Astros and win these games. So I think the season starts tomorrow. So yeah, to answer your question, I'm going to say no, but I'm back because I'm happy though. So the Yankees might not be back, but E-ray's back because I'm feeling good about the Yankees. So it's weird. It's a weird dynamic I'm feeling. It's like they're not back, but I'm back. But I don't know. I'm all over.
I'm gonna say that they
What
are
about you?
back, and
Okay.
the reason I'm saying they are back is because I felt like they were close enough to start to be back once the starting pitching started to work out a little bit, but they really just needed to get some offensive contributions from the guys who really needed to contribute offensively. And Judge looks great right now. Stanton looks great right now. I think you got Gio, who is the miracle of the season, our little Gio, just doing what you expected to see. And that's holding court because you know what? The fact is DJ LeMahieu might not be back yet, but he's about to get back. Clint Frazier, he had that bloop hit in the series against Atlanta. And from then, his defense might have been absolutely horrendous. He's not looked good defensively in the field at all. But he is starting to hit. First homer of the season, driving the ball. And Glaber had a couple of big multi-hit games in Cleveland and then had that giant hit against Baltimore. So they're coming out of it. And because of that, with how good their pitching has been, how electric their bullpen has been, I think they're back because the guys who you want to hit are starting to hit. And that doesn't excuse how they performed 2 weeks ago on the podcast when we completely ethered them. And it also doesn't excuse the fact that every game matters. I'm sorry, I don't subscribe to the thinking that losses in April matter less than losses in September or in August. They don't. They matter the same. You could screw up your season in April just like you can screw up your season in August. But all things considered, the Yankees are trending in the right direction and will have to do it. But you are correct that for this team, you now have a series against the Houston Astros, a series, I believe, against the Washington Nationals, and then a series against the Tampa Bay Rays. And nobody has clowned you more than the Houston Astros in the playoffs and the Tampa Bay Rays over the last 2 years in your division. So that's really what's going to prove that they are back and put the nail in the coffin of the mediocre start to the season that they had.
And also you want to see consistency, right? Like if say the Yankees now, they're back in your eyes. They took care of business against Detroit, but they lose 2 out of 3 to Houston. You said they face Washington. Say they lose there, whatever, 1 game or something. But then they lose the series against the Rays again. Also, the Rays have not been good this year, by the way, against other teams. I think they're 8-14 against the rest of the league, but against the Yankees, they look like the 27 Yankees, where the Rays are clearly in the Yankees' heads. They really are. It has to be mental when it comes.
I think they're 6-1 in those games against the Yankees, right?
I think they're 6-1. I believe that sounds about right.
Maybe 5-1. I can't think off the top of my head if that first series was a 4-gamer or a 3-game series, but they won every game but one in that, and then they swept them in the next series. So
yeah, the problem is you just want to see this consistency because say next week we get on the pod and they lost series again, then it's just back and forth. Where 1 week they look back, next week they look not back, then back, and that's literally not a good team. That's a 500 team.
Yep.
Again,
and they shouldn't be a 500 ball club.
They shouldn't be a 500 team. Right now we're back to 500. We did what we needed to do. We beat the bad teams, took care of business, and now again, season starts tomorrow. We got to take care of business and we'll be there.
You're absolutely right. And we will get into that and we'll talk about our excitement and our jitters in just a minute. But let's do some housekeeping stuff because the stories regarding the Yankees wins and losses this week aside, there were some tidbits here or there, some things you might hear through the grapevine, as a friend of ours might call it. There was some scuttlebutt to talk about regarding the New York Yankees this week. And first things first is they have a guy going on the DL, Darren O'Day. I believe it was a rotator cuff strain
Yeah.
And that's big because rotator cuff tear is you're out like 12 months and you're not there. Rotator cuff strain, according to Boone, bothered him during the preseason. Then they wound up having him pitch through it. He was good and actually didn't have any pain. And then we saw him pitch in Baltimore and he was horrendous.
Yeah, he was bad. I knew something had to be up because he wasn't.
And then literally 3 days later, they put him on the IL. They bring up Mike King again. And I guess he'll probably be out somewhere around 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think they said June or something. So hopefully he can get healthy because, again, we both love Josh as well. Both love the O'Day signing. And you kind of just knew because in Baltimore, he stunk. So
I mean, he did. And he was not good. And look, they need him to be good because when he isn't good, and when they've had pitchers who aren't good, they're Adam Ottavino, who is now blowing games for the Boston Red Sox. So
thank you, Otto, by the way. Thank you. Yep. Going over there as our secret agent and blowing games for the Red Sox. I love it.
Yep, it's true. It was a crazy trade. But anyway, Darren O'Day, he's going to be out for the foreseeable future. They bring up Mike King. Good news is that it seems as though Zach Britton's kind of close. Injury updates as far as the Yankees are concerned. They're going to have Sevy start seeing live batters. Rumor is that Zach Britton might be good to go in the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, you have Luke Voit, who's starting to play some minor league games. So injury-wise, the big three, I guess you could say, as far as Yankees' upcoming injury replacements on the horizon, good things. Not status quo, above status quo.
No, I mean, exactly that. I mean, it'll be great to, have Britton, who was freaking awesome last year for us and back in that bullpen, especially with Loisaga doing well, Chad Green, Michael King. I mean, we can talk about him. He's having a spectacular season. He keeps getting snap though, getting sent down. I made a joke saying, does that guy even pack an overnight bag because he's going on the bus right after the game anyway. But yeah, man, it'll be great to get Britton back and Luke Voit, man, because I didn't want to. Jay Bruce retired and Mike Ford, great mustache, but I'm done with Mike Ford.
He's mediocre at best.
Yeah. I don't want to see him anymore either. I didn't want to see him last year. So Luke Voit, I will welcome you back with open arms. He's going to Somerset, actually. Somerset Patriots, the AA affiliate for the New York Yankees. I actually want to try to hit up a couple Somerset Patriots games myself this year because my one friend lives in around there. So
don't bury my lead because of what I'm going to get to next, which is that the New York Yankees announced that their lineups for their AAA, AA, A+, and Tampa low A seasons are going to be starting. Of course, last year, no minor league baseball season. Therefore, we weren't able to see Jason Dominguez in action. We were all depressed about that. But no minor league baseball at all. So the alternate site is FNUD, as they would say. And now we have AAA, AA, single A, and A+ baseball. Just some names on the AAA roster, which should be interesting in Scranton Wilkes-Barre off the top of your head, who you would know if you thought about it and you looked at it. You have Devi Garcia, you have Nestor Cortez Jr., you have Albert Abreu. Of course, our Papa, Miguel Andujar, is down there. I'm looking at Nick Nelson, who's currently on that roster right now. Of course, he's somebody you could see the Yankees bring up at back and down and see what it is. And then Derek Dietrich, he was a guy who, of course, was big in spring training. Yankees brought him in. He can play outfield. He can play first base. God forbid something happens injury-wise. Somerset Patriots, you mentioned before, used to be the Trenton Thunder. Two of them had a falling out, so you're not going to be able to see
a lot of heat between them too.
A lot of heat, so you're not going to be able to see that. Biggest name there for them is Estevan Floreal, who Yankees prospects. He's been one of their top prospects. He's gone down the chute a little bit and fallen there, but he's going to be one of the outfielders for them. So we'll see whether or not they have the opportunity to get him some good at-bats down there at AA. Luis Gil as well. He's a name that a lot of people have talked about in the Yankees minor league system. Then you have your single A affiliates. I think we're at the point right now where unless you're super, super deep in the New York Yankees minor league sheets, you're probably not going to know a lot about what their A+ and single A roster is. But what I can tell you is that for the Renegades in Hudson Valley, and then, of course, the Tampa Tarpoons, there will be a lot of high-quality New York Yankees minor league talent to look out for, but one of the names will not be Jason Dominguez. There were rumors that our young king, JD, was going to be, I think, in Hudson Valley.
Yeah,
Wasn't that
Hudson
what it
Valley.
was? And
Yeah,
their A+ affiliate. But instead, he's at extended spring training. I think the reason why is because the Yankees would rather him get work with coaches day in and day out rather than travel around with the team and, get on a bus and stay at a crappy hotel and do all the stuff that kind of comes along with that. But I would be stunned if Jason Dominguez is not somewhere in the minor league system within the next couple of months once extended spring ends.
I think they mentioned that one of the trainers or scouts said they expect that to happen. But yeah, I think the pandemic, stalled and like a lot of this development for Jason Dominguez. But yeah, man, I mean, we've literally talked about or heard about Jason Dominguez for the last 2 years. We've seen him on every magazine. We see him everywhere, and it's time. He's in extended spring training. We'll see when this guy's, but he's our new prized possession. He's our new baby. So we're rooting for him because we need him. And what position is he playing, Jules, in extended spring training? Center field. So watch out, Aaron Hicks. I'm just kidding. But maybe not.
Right. It is funny. I will say this. They're not going to bring him up. But a few weeks ago when the Yankees were really, really awful, I heard an interesting theory regarding what the Yankees should do. And you remember this back in 2005 when the Yankees were very bad to start off the year. They brought up a young stud pick. They brought up a young stud pitcher and a young stud second baseman, both of whom were prospects and both of which didn't have very high expectations. And that really pushed the Yankees over the mark. And of course, they didn't win a World Series in 2005, but they were able to win the division and were able to look very serviceable by doing it. Do you know who the pitcher and who the position player was?
I know the second baseman. I'm guessing the second baseman is Robinson Cano.
You were right. Yes.
And the starting pitcher. So if you said, I know two other pitchers they got via trade.
No, it's not the trade pitchers though.
So it's not Chacon and Aaron Small. Is it Ching?
No, it's neither of those. But they were very good, of course, for the Yankees.
Was it Ching Ming Wang in 05?
It was. Yes, it was Ching Ming Wang. Big fan favorite of mine. Love Ching Ming Wang.
Back-to-back 19-game winners in 06 and 07.
He ruled. And when he hurt himself running the bases in Houston, it was one of the lowest points of my Yankee fanhood because I loved Ching Ming Wang. He was the best.
He really was.
And he could have been the ace. They could have had him and CC just doing it out there. But you know what? My ankles bother me a little bit because I slept wrong last night. So I can only imagine how he felt, a professional athlete, hurting his bases or hurting his ankle, running the bases because of a stupid rule that Major League Baseball refuses to get rid of. Yes, awful. So that is the New York Yankees roster update and sort of our last little bit of house cleaning. A big congratulations goes out to the New York Yankees Player of the Week for the American League. That's Corey Kluber. He was 2-0 with a 0.61 ERA in 14.2 innings pitched with 1 earned run and 15 Ks. His 2 wins were tied for the most in the majors during that time, and his 15 Ks were tied for 3rd in strikeouts and 2nd in the AL, and his 0.61 ERA was the 2nd lowest in the majors, and it was the lowest in the AL. So no surprise here, Corey Kluber, the AL Player of the Week, and then you had Garrett Cole, who, let's just be honest, was, outside of Jacob deGrom, the best pitcher in baseball. We have them both here in New York City, and deGrom was equally as good. Cole, 4-1 in 6 games, 37.2 innings pitched, a 1.43 ERA, 62 Ks. He only wound up giving up a .071 whip, and then he was absolutely electric in those games that he was able to start. So 2 very good Yankees pitchers dominate. Not much more you can ask for.
No, and if you want to combine all 3, Cole, Tyone, Kluber, 19 innings, 1 earned run, 30 Ks. Now that's a rotation that we thought we were getting, and that's a rotation we won in October. And if they continue to pitch like that, those stats I just listed, we should we should go pretty far in October, but we'll wait. I'll take this for right now. And again, we're at 500. Let's take it one game at a time, and it starts with tomorrow night.
You're absolutely right. I had my mic on mute. I didn't want to cut you off, so I was muted a little bit, but that's okay.
That's okay. I
brings up,
it.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't want to step on your toes, but that does bring up a very interesting question. And this is sort of, I guess, our rounded about big debate question of the night. One of the biggest storylines, I would say, over the past week and a half has been Higgy versus Gary. Kyle Higashioka has earned his playing time, according to Aaron Boone. He's hitting for power. He's hitting for singles. He's hitting for doubles. And he's catching a damn good game behind the plate. Meanwhile, Gary started off hot, had those 2 home runs, but since then has been what we have pretty much come to expect from him over the last 2 years or so, which is mediocre to, at worst, terrible defense and bad hitting. So Higashioka now is sort of, I would say, solidified himself as the starting catcher for the New York Yankees. He started on Sunday with Kluber. He started on Friday with Garrett Cole. He started on Wednesday and Tuesday of the series against Baltimore. The only games he didn't start this past week were the 2 day games following a night game, and that's because you don't really want your catcher to start those games. And look, not only is the proof in the pudding in terms of the talent he's putting out there, E-ray, but it's out there for the starters too. Entering yesterday's game, starters with Gary Sanchez had a 3.92 ERA, whereas starters with Kyle Higashioka, 1.92 ERA. And that only went down considering that you had no runs allowed by Corey Kluber in those 8 innings pitched that he threw in a masterclass against the Detroit Tigers. So I ask you, is Kyle Higashioka your everyday starter? And is he the reason that as of late, the starting rotation has been dynamic?
So yes, he is. He should be your everyday starter. Now, is he the reason that the starting pitching has been fantastic? I don't know, because Gary Sanchez has played a couple of those games where starting pitching has looked pretty well as well. So I'm not gonna cut Gary short there. But back to Higgy. Yes, Higgy should play every single day right now. The tide has turned. It's about time that the Yankees have cut the bullshit. They did it last October in the postseason when they started playing Higgy. It was too late. They should have did that earlier in the season. And it's finally realized with Aaron Boone's quote, yeah, Higgy has earned the playing time. He's still being a little wishy-washy, of course, because granted, they probably don't want to hurt poor Gary's feelings. As you know, that article piece that we talked about in the offseason where Gary didn't know why he was benched. Well, Gary, you better realize why you might be you're not benched. You're going to play still. But Higgy's the guy right now. And I don't know if Higgy will continue to go on this role. We'll see. But right now, they should just play the hot hitter, and that's Higgy.
All right. So let me preface this by saying Kyle Higashioka should and is the starting catcher, but should he be? Hell fucking yeah, he should be the everyday catcher. Gary Sanchez fucking stinks.
Wow.
He's not good. It's
I don't want to go there.
3+ years of subpar under 220 batting from him. And look, is his inability to hit entirely his fault? No, because Michael Kay and David Cohn actually made a perfect excuse up for him. He has this weird ass leg thing going on whenever he catches that he doesn't have the same balance. And because the Yankees have tinkered and fiddled and messed with his defense so much, we all know, and we've all said on this podcast, whether it's me, you, or Josh, that that's what screwed him up. It's the same stuff that we've seen before with Gleyber, and granted, Gleyber has looked a lot better at short, so I will give him credit.
Yes,
he's been able to overcome it. His stats, at least in the past 2 weeks, have looked much better defensively at shortstop, but Gary has not, and it's now been 3 years of doing that. He is not going to recover offensively until they give up what they're going to try and make him do defensively. And the fact is, they're never going to give that up because having a good defensive catcher is part of the game if you want your pitching staff to be good. Kyle Higashioka's framing of pitches is elite.
Yeah.
The way that they pitch to him is the way that a pitcher wants to pitch to a player. I've never pitched in my life. You know this. We talked about this with my dad, but I've watched a lot of baseball. I've read a lot of baseball, and I've heard from a lot of pitchers. And the fact is, if you're Corey Kluber, if you're Garrett Cole, if you're Jameson Taillon, if you're Jordan Montgomery, if you're Deivi Garcia, if you're Domingo Germán, if you're whoever, you want to know you can throw your breaking ball wherever, and your pitcher, your catcher is going to be able to make the play. Is it any coincidence that when Domingo Germán came up, they gave him Higgy as his catcher?
Yeah, no,
it isn't.
Right.
They want them to succeed. And with Gary, it won't happen because Gary's not a good defensive catcher who they tried to make a good defensive catcher, and he's still not a good defensive catcher, and he's a subpar hitter now because he can't hit anymore because of how out of whack his brain is.
It's actually insane to – sorry to cut you off real quick, but it's kind of insane because you talked about, like, just looking at his stats and seeing the hitter he was.
He was unbelievable. You could not get a fastball by this guy. You could not get a breaking ball by this guy. And it's funny because Josh said this to us earlier this week about how the Yankees would mess around with that 2-3 in the lineup. And they would put themselves in a position in which they would put other guys in between Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. And one of the guys they put in between that early in 2018 was Gary Sanchez. And that's because we all subscribed and thought of this thinking that this was the guy who was the best hitter in our lineup.
Yeah.
Because he had proven that for that 2016 season when he came up and was one of the best pure hitters you have ever seen. And that 2017 team where, sure, he didn't hit 300 like he did when he came up, but he was hitting 270, 280. He was mashing home runs.
Yeah.
That's all you want. We're out of the era where good hitters hit 270. We're in the era now where they have an OPS that's over 900, where they have an on-base percentage that's over 300, where they have a slugging that's over 600. That's where we are. And Gary was able to do that. And I've said it before, last year when you had Travis d'Arnaud in the playoffs for the Braves, no one gave a crap what the hell he was doing behind the plate because he was hitting homers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's never going to happen with Gary. So if you ask me, what are you going to look for if you're the New York Yankees? Well, the answer is pretty simple. You're going to give the guy that, sure, one day his offense might go dry, and that's Kyle Higashioka. But every single day when Garrett Cole goes out there on that mound, when Corey Kluber goes out there on that mound, when Taillon or Germán or Sevy or Deivi Garcia or anybody in the bullpen go out there on that mound, they know they're going to get a guy who's going to catch an elite game for them, and they are going to allow their offense to help them out because they're not going to give up a lot of runs. And that's really all you can hope for. So I'm done with Gary. He is Jose Molina now. That's who he is.
Wow.
He is the 2021 New York Yankees Jose Molina. Comes in for some games. I love Jose Molina too. Last homer at Yankee Stadium. Big part of the 2009 team. He's got a ring, but that's who Gary Sanchez is. Stop trying to pretend that he is JT Realmuto. He is not. Stop trying to pretend that he's Mike Piazza or Jorge Posada. He's neither of them. He is a has-been. He will not be the catcher we all want him to be. So move on. He is a backup. Period. Stop.
Wow. I mean, you said it all. Gary's done. It's over. He should listen and just say, sorry.
He's not gonna mail it in. He didn't know why he was benched last year.
You're right. Yeah. It's the Higgy show from now on, man.
We'll have to see. At a minimum, we know the Garrett Cole starts will be the Higgy show, and that's all you can ask for.
They're gonna play both though.
They can't afford they can afford not to, but the truth is they will not do that because they are still hung up on trying to find offense for Gary. And that goes into the fact that there's a reason why they bring in guys like Gio Urshela, Mike Talkman, Rougned Odor, Luke Voigt. It's because every now and then they hit pay dirt for them. But I think we are at the point where as long as Gary is in that stupid stance, and like I said, Michael Kay and David Cohn did an excellent job. It was superb to analyze the difference between what his stance was and his defense was when he was raking in 2016, 2017, and now that as long as that's the case, he's just never going to be as good. He has not been able to overcome that mental obstacle in the same way that it looks as though Gleyber Torres might be doing with shortstop.
Yeah.
All right. So before we keep you flabbergasted anymore, we're going to a game tomorrow or today,
yes, we
depending
are.
on when you're listening to the podcast, because of course we are posting this on May 4th. May the 4th be with you.
Wow. That's a big day for us.
I agree. You and I, big Star Wars fans, Bad Batch drops. We'll be able to watch that. Will be very, very fun and exciting. But we will be at the Yanks game first and foremost. Last time Josh and I were at a Yankees game was I believe it was game 3 against Houston. Zach Greinke on the mound. Yankees couldn't break through despite having the bases loaded. Where have you heard that before? And it was depressing. But now we'll be back at the stadium. A pot of 4. We'll have me, you, and Josh there, and a guy who is not a Yankee fan, but is a good friend of ours. So we'll allow him to be a part of the festivities. Shout out to Andrew Fertitta. And it's going to be fun. How hyped are you, bro?
I'm really hyped. I mean, I got my first taste of baseball last week, but I'm getting my first taste of Yankee Stadium baseball against a team that we hate with my boys. Let's fucking go. That's how hyped I am right now. I'm ready to go to Billy's. I'm ready to get my Jeter Jamboree. I'm ready to yell. I'm ready to scream. I'm ready to drink. I'm ready to cheer. I'm ready to boo. I am ready.
That's what I was going to ask you because I am going to be driving to the stadium tomorrow because public transit this game, maybe in games in the future, but this game is not readily available for me. So therefore, there will be no ruckus at Yankee Stadium like I would want to.
It's a work day for you. It's a work day. I was
able to do that. Yeah, it's a work day. It's a business trip. We got an OLYP Twitter account to run. We got some OLYP videos to put out there. We got a game to watch. We got a lot of booing to do, but it is a business trip, as the pro athletes would say. But I was excited to see that you're going to get the Jeter Jamboree.
Oh, of course. Imagine if no, I'm not even going to think about it.
No, the deli's open.
The deli's there. The deli has to be.
What are you going to say to your boys when you come in? Are you going to introduce yourself? Are you going to be like, it's been a while?
I might start crying. I'll be like, I might play music, entrance music or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
They're not gonna know. Yeah, they're not gonna know.
See, E-ray, for those of you who don't know, and why would you know this unless you're an E-ray fan, which you might be, E-ray loves to belt out some good WWE entrance music.
I do. It's great for any moment.
Yep, he's right. It absolutely is. Josh said he's going to get the chicken bucket, so we have to hold him.
That's big for Josh.
He said it on the podcast. He said it on the podcast, so we have to hold him to this.
You better take a
any
picture of
OLYP
it.
fan who is listening to this for tonight's game, because that's when this podcast is dropping, for tonight's game, we are going to make sure that Josh eats the chicken bucket.
He needs to.
Because if he doesn't, he's a liar, and we're not going to accept that.
How about this? He might not. The thing is, he's not here though, so we can't make a ultimatum like you did with me with the pie. What if I was gonna say
you can't accept it for him.
I know, but we'll ask him tomorrow. But I was gonna say if he doesn't eat the chicken bucket, if he doesn't, then he has to come on the pod and say I think Giancarlo Stanton is great in the Yankees.
See, like there we go. I like that. That's good. I like that. And here's the thing. Just get the chicken bucket, eat a little bit of it, and then I'll help him because I like the chicken bucket.
I love it, yeah.
But apparently I am excited to see what Yankee Stadium has as far as food selection, because it does look as though they've added a few more things. And This might be the last game that you and I really get to see with a limited capacity, because July 1st, New York City's opening seems as though that it's going to include Yankee Stadium being at 100% capacity. So the days of COVID restrictions limiting the number of fans in attendance might be on the way out.
Yeah, which is wild. I'm not gonna lie though, I kind of like because it was less lines in the bathroom and less lines at the concession stand. You actually have space. So yeah, I love the electricity of like, a full packed stadium, but being there in my seats, I kind of like the not that many people, to be honest.
I'll be honest. I talked about this today, and this has nothing to do with the New York Yankees, but there was a big benefit to the COVID restrictions, and that was there was no traffic. And I can already tell
Now
that
there's going to be traffic.
Driving from New Jersey tomorrow, right around rush hour, to get to Yankee Stadium, going over the GW Bridge, having to park in the Bronx, doesn't matter how many people are going to that game. I already know it's going to be a pain in the ass. And I'm going to say, all right, well, I leave around 4:30. I'll be there around 5:30. No shot I get in the building before 6:30.
Yeah, no way. Yeah.
I already know it. So all the excitement and the enjoyment that I can expect to have will not take place on that car ride. And I can already pretty much guarantee that. But it will be fun to be back in the building. It's a long time coming. We're going to be completely following along throughout the day on the OLYP Twitter account. So follow us at our Lil Yanks Pod, OURLILYANKSPOD, because you're going to see me, you're going to see E-ray, you're going to see Josh, and you're going to see our special guest, Andrew, living it up at Yankee Stadium at the pod, cheering for the Yanks, booing the trash can beater Astros, and just getting hyped. So without further ado, Eric Ray Sepulveda, bring us home. What do you got for us? Anything interesting or fun?
So one thing I have is I just wanted to shout out Chapman. You talked about Stan, we talked about Gary, who you've always hated. And, me and Chapman have had a little rivalry here and there. But Chapman this season, man, video game numbers. 35 batters faced, 24 strikeouts, 2 hits. I mean, Chapman has, developed that, I think it's a splitter, right? He's developed that new pitch, and he has looked superb. He looks literally unhittable. It's like a new guy out there. So shout out Chapman. And also, I didn't do this 2 weeks ago because I think we were just so pissed with the Yankees and we were angry, and honestly, no one deserved it. But I'm going to bring back my Papa of the Week for this week. And you
didn't get to do it this week because last week either, because you
so 2
here.
weeks now. 2 weeks. One because the Yankees sucked and I wasn't here last week. There's some good candidates. I thought about Judge. I thought about Stanton. They're having great years. I mean, great years already. Jesus, great weeks. But I think I'm gonna give it to. I think Corey Kluber, because I think Judge and Stanton might get it later in the season. But Corey Kluber.
Stanton was your MVP pick, so he's gonna be top of the year.
So what's it called? Kluber. I mean, when you have a 0.6 ERA for 2 starts, I think you earned Papa of the Week.
I agree. Absolutely.
Corey Kluber. Papa of the Week. So right now we have Gary Sanchez, who was my first Papa of the Week. Probably won't win that again. And now Corey Kluber with my second Papa of the Week.
For the record, almost just had a absolute piss my pants moment, because one of the members of the Yankees Twitter, Fuzzy from YT, at Fuzzy from YT, tweeted Yankees Astros tomorrow. Let's go. Screenshot of the start time, said 4:05. I was like, what the actual fuck? And then realized this kid's based in Nevada, so he's about 3 hours behind. So You're about to see me have a frantic meltdown about what time this game actually was until I realized
you would have left work early, right?
Of course, 100%. But it's a 7:05 start for the New York Yankees tomorrow against the Houston Astros. They have their series against Houston, then they take on the Nationals, and then they take on Tampa. So as E-ray put it, the boys are 500, the boys are hot, but the season starts now. Let's get after it. That's going to do it for us here on our little Yankees podcast. As always, you can follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. That includes Spotify pods, that includes Apple Podcasts, tune in, SoundCloud, and you can watch our beautiful, wonderful faces on every single episode of OLYP, which is posted live with video on YouTube for our OLYP channel, as well as my YouTube page, which is Julian Coltree. For Eric Ray Sepulveda, I'm Julian Coltree. Josh had the night off tonight, but we love him and we miss him, and we can't wait for him again to be back next week. And we'll see you at the Yankee game tomorrow. If you're there, come say hi to us. I can tell you right now what section we're in. We're looking for it. I have the ticket right here on my app. So if you want, come say hi to us. Josh and I and E-ray, we're going to be in section, let me pull it up right now, 425, the grandstand, row 9. Come say hi. The OLYP crew, party with us, drink with us, enjoy the night with us. Let's go Yankees. And the season starts tonight against the Astros. Let's go, baby.